it's so exciting to not only be part of this event, but to follow on the heels of that wonderful fireside chat. The conversation between Coke and Win really set the table for the conversation that I am going to help to lead with this amazing panel of women. Women who serve in various different roles, both as entrepreneurs and supporting the entrepreneurship community. As it was once said, small business isn't for the faint of heart. It's for the brave, the patient, the persistent, the overcomers. And each and every one of these women who's on this panel today can truly be seen as an overcomer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of them to you very, very briefly, and then turn to each of them to have them tell you about their current role and how they play a role in the world of entrepreneurship. First and foremost, our first panelist is Jennifer Camacho, who is the founder and principal member of Untitled, which is a next-gen law firm working with companies and investors in the life science industry. Previously, she was the Chief Legal Officer for Torque Therapeutics, and she is also a member of our Patent Public Advisory Committee. I will allow Jennifer to tell you more about herself in just a moment. Also on our panel today is Molly Kachowski. Molly serves as the Director of the Rocky Mountain Regional Office for the United States Patent and Trademark Office. She brings more than 20 years of intellectual property experience to the USPTO. Most recently, Molly was the Senior Patent Counsel at Oracle America, where she was responsible for managing an active patent prosecution docket and was also responsible for all of the post-grant procedures and patent investigations for Oracle and its subsidiaries. Prior to Oracle, she worked for Quest Corporation. Third, and certainly not least in any way, is Kim Meckwood, who is the owner and inventor of Click and Carry. And you're going to be excited to hear her story as truly the entrepreneur on our panel. She started Click and Carry in May of 2008, and prior to that time had served as an executive neuroscience sales specialist with Acadia Pharmaceuticals. She had also worked as a market development consultant for Medtronic, and was a specialty representative in the neurological and psychological side of Schwartz Pharma and Wyeth Arst Pharmaceuticals. So as you can see, we have a wide range of talents and expertise here on our panel today. With that, I would like to turn to Jennifer to first, again, introduce herself in her own words and talk to you about her experience in working with entrepreneurs and the work that she's doing today. Jennifer, please. Jennifer, unfortunately, you are on mute.
How about that? Thank you, Elizabeth, and good afternoon to everybody. As Elizabeth mentioned, I am an attorney and a founder and principal member of Untitled, which is wholly a patent and IP-centric law firm. It's a lot of fun. Now, before launching Untitled, I was the general counsel and chief legal officer for a number of years at a venture-backed startup in cancer immunotherapeutics and at a synthetic biology company. And Untitled is my most recent and definitely my most significant pivot yet in my professional career. It's just been fantastic. I'm also a member of the Patent Public Advisory Committee, or PPAC as we call it, and it has 9 members from the public representing various interests in the patent stakeholder community. I have spent a great deal of time over the past 25 years working with venture-backed startups and early-stage companies, primarily in the life sciences field. So that's the perspective that I bring to PPAC. Now, what I'd love to talk about today is, as part of the PPAC, I chair the Innovation Expansion Subcommittee along with my colleague and good friend, Valencia Martin-Wallace, who you will hear from in the next panel. Now, the Invention Expansion Initiative is focused on increasing the engagement of underrepresented groups, such as women, in innovation in our patent system. This mission is really, really important to me and to many others, and it's truly personal to me. And I am so happy to be here with all of you today to talk about women entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for touching on the National Council for Expanding American Innovation. And I'm sure that throughout our conversation today, you'll have another opportunity to weave in that content as well. At this time, I'd like to turn to Molly Kachowski. Molly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Molly. I am the Regional Director for the Rocky Mountain U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Like Jennifer, I've pivoted a few times in my career, not necessarily those straying from what I refer to as my first love, which is intellectual property and helping people understand intellectual property and how it works for them. I always like to say there isn't an IP rodeo I haven't ridden in. I've had the absolute honor of being a part of so many fascinating aspects of intellectual property, both from the prosecution and the litigation side, as well as from a private practice side and an in-house counsel side. And I think, you know, and gotten to do some really neat things with mergers and acquisitions and bankruptcy, and even a little bit of trust to the state's work when it comes to intellectual property. But it's been an amazing ride, and it's even better being at the agency. You know, Coke and Wynn talked about how amazing this agency is in having as many women as we do in our leadership, as many women as we get to practice with. And it is so amazing to be here and to be using all of those skills that I gained over the 20 years when I was an attorney to help others understand the intellectual property system, maybe demystify the intellectual property system a little bit, and demystify the agency for those people who are so, you know, such sophisticated users. So that's me.
Thank you, Molly. As with Jennifer, you certainly bring a wealth of expertise to our conversation today, and certainly to your role as the Rocky Mountain Regional Director, working directly with entrepreneurs today. It's lovely to see, and it's going to be a great conversation how each of us pivot in our own professional capacity, but we also witness and experience and share in the pivot of others and those that we work with. Without further ado, I'd like to turn to our final panelist member to introduce herself. And Kim Meckwood, please, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. I'm Kim Meckwood, and I'm the owner and inventor of Click and Carry, which is a simple handle device that allows shoppers to manage and carry multiple bags at once, either in your hand or worn over your shoulder for a hands-free carry. So this is a really special honor for me because my proudest accomplishment is when I was awarded 2 utility patents by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So to be on a panel and to talk about my invention it's just a dream come true. And I'm here to talk about my latest pivot, which was leaving a secure, safe job that pays well to be a solo entrepreneur promoting my product. So I'm thrilled to be here. I can't wait to share my experiences with you. And thank you, USPTO, for inviting me. I'm thrilled.
Kim, thank you. And congratulations on your 2 U.S. utility patents. I'm sure those are just the first of many. If most entrepreneurs are any example, once you get bit by that patent bug, it's often a lifelong career. With that, ladies, I am going to turn to our first question, and I invite and encourage each and every one of you to jump in on whichever questions that you feel comfortable answering. Your insights and expertise are welcomed on each and every question. Our first question, and really tied to the title of our topic today, when is a pivot necessary for a company or individual? And what are some of those key considerations and steps to take for a successful pivot?
I'll jump in and I'll
go first. Kim, why don't you go first?
Okay, I'll talk about my recent pivot. It was a scary pivot for me because, as I mentioned, I had a safe and secure job with insurance and a regular salary coming in. But I had the opportunity because of Shark Tank to receive pretty much overnight PR, and I had to capitalize on that opportunity. So knowing that I was going to be on the show, I prepared all summer in my spare time to make sure that I had a 3PL, which is a distribution center set up. I made sure that my website was going to have the proper amount of capabilities so I can handle all of the traffic. I set up PR to capitalize on the opportunity. So I prepared all these things in time for the airing of my segment, and I was able to quit my job in October, about a month and a half before I was actually on TV, and take advantage of that opportunity.
So Kim, it sounds like you got an offer from the Sharks and you took them up on their offer?
And now my dream job is that I get to invent things for a living. I can't believe it. I'm going to be filing for my next patent very shortly, so be on the lookout.
Well, we eagerly await its arrival at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Molly, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
I did. I really think, you know, Wynn talked about this in her role, and I'll add a little bit of a piece to something that Wynn said earlier, which is, you know, I really think self-awareness is incredibly important, especially when you're pivoting. You know, having an understanding of what skills you bring to the table and how transferable they are and what that might look like is hugely important. But I will add in a piece. I think that being able to take feedback, whether it's good or bad feedback, right? You know, being able to find that nugget in feedback, whether it's from your customers, whether it's from your colleagues or your peers, or even your bosses, right? About what you need to do and where you need to pivot and what skills you might have that will allow you to be successful in that pivot. I think that's huge. And so I really think, right? And then once you decide to pivot, then I think it's really important that you articulate kind of the change that you want to make. You have your reasons for it. You understand the why and the what and the how of what you're going to pivot. And Kim, what I love about your story, right, is you knew. You had time to plan, and then you planned and you knew where you were going to pivot. You lined everything up so that you could take advantage of those opportunities. And I think that's really the key to a successful pivot is not just the self-awareness, the feedback, but also the planning that goes into pivoting. Jennifer, you look like you have something to say.
Oh, I was going to follow up on your comment about being able to take feedback, and I think that's, and you mentioned taking feedback from your customers. I think that's an incredibly important point. You know, part of the feedback is from your customers or the market or your investors. I work with a lot of early stage companies, startups, for example, and they're often based on a premise. They think that, for example, this would be a great product, that people are going to want to buy this product for X, Y, and Z reason. And it is a terrific product. But for whatever reason, that premise isn't true, or at least isn't true as of that day. I had a client, for example, who thought that they had a box and that everybody would want a box on their lab bench because it would be so much more convenient. But of course, the box was very expensive. What people wanted was the service. And so what was great about that situation was that that company understood. They took in all of the data and they converted from being a product company to services company. And the great thing was that they were prepared for that from an IP perspective. They had patents that covered the product. They also had patents that covered the method and the service. And so they were able to do a very successful pivot and continue their business.
You know, Jennifer, I think you make a really good point, and that also goes to the concept, and not one that we're going to focus on today, but creating an IP portfolio where you have different things in your quiver. You have different tools and tricks in your bag that you can bring forward when those opportunities present themselves. Molly, you talked about perceiving and understanding and appreciating feedback, and Zig Ziglar once said, statistics suggest that when customers complain, business owners and managers ought to get excited about it. The complaining customer represents a huge opportunity for more business. And Kim, maybe this is an opportunity for you to jump in. Having met you, in fact, at a trade show, you shared once how customers have really changed your perception of your own product. Customers have come to you providing uses for your product that you had never envisioned. How has that changed how you market your product or how you present your product?
It has been an amazing thing to listen to the feedback from the customers for that very reason, because I never dreamed of all these other uses. For example, click and carry can now be used as a ski boot tow. It could be used for paint cans and construction pails, to carry dry cleaning, to walk multiple dogs at once. And the most recent is to use the click and carry as a prop for your iPhone or iPad. And what this has done is it allowed me to expand to different channels. So initially I was trying to sell to grocery stores and big box retailers, but now I could sell to places like Lowe's and Home Depot, or I can put a logo on the click and carry and sell it to a dry cleaning chain, and they could give it out for free with a certain number of dollars spent on dry cleaning. So it's been really instrumental. And it's interesting because as we were talking, I was thinking about customer feedback. I had an issue where the gel padding on the bottom of my click and carry was coming loose. Now, if I didn't get that feedback, it's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that click and carry works perfectly and it's always in perfect condition, but there were problems with the glue. So I was able to quickly pivot, work with my factory and make an accommodation, and ultimately provide a better product and save money for the customer because I reduced cost of goods as well.
Outstanding and so fascinating. Your comment, Kim, really leads into our next question, and that is, what best practices can each of you share that have helped you or your clients move forward, and what lessons did you learn in adapting? What were your takeaways from that moment of experience, or that moment of realization, and that moment that required you to take action?
I can lead off with the best practices, and it plays on the story I just talked about. It's really about planning for the opportunity. You know, entrepreneurship always has a pivot. There's some pivot. It's maybe a small pivot. It may be a large pivot. There'll be a series of pivots, and plan for that. You know, identify options for your business to pivot or to expand before the need arises. You know, you may be doing, again, you may be selling a device today, but you want to provide the service tomorrow. So plan for that. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a backup plan. It's really an expansion plan. If you're not going to use it for a pivot, you'll use it to grow your business.
And I always like to, in talking with people about entrepreneurship, I always talk about starting with the end in mind. I think too many people have this great idea, and that's where they want to go. They want to chase the idea. They don't think about, what am I going to do with that idea? You know, am I building something that's going to be an intergenerational thing that I'm going to pass down to my children and my children's children? Is it, I'm going to run this company for the rest of my life? Is it, I'm going to run this company until I can sell it to somebody else, and then start over again and invent something new or come up with something new? I think because all of those different things actually sort of come back to what you're going to do at the beginning, and especially in terms of intellectual property, right? It's definitely going to make decisions a little bit easier for you if you know that that's what you want to do. And, you know, with the company I last worked for before I joined the government, they are a mergers and acquisitions machine. And I saw it all too often. You know, you would have these people that had these great ideas. They chased the idea, they built up a company, they became attractive enough to be bought by a much bigger company. And then they honestly had no clue what to do with themselves. They were not prepared to be absorbed into the bigger company, as I used to joke, being absorbed into the Borg. And they were not prepared for that. And they didn't, you know, understand the pivot that they would have to do from being that successful leader and entrepreneur and idea maker to now being part of a much larger company. And those people did not fare well in the new company, you know, but the people who pivoted and who knew all along that that was one of the things that was probably in their future, they really did well. And so I always tell people, please start with the end in mind. What is it that you want to achieve with this? Not necessarily just the getting of a patent, not necessarily just the building of a brand, but what's your end game? Where do you want to be if this is successful? And then also be prepared for it not to be successful, because sometimes they aren't.
And I'm going to touch on something that Molly Beth mentioned, and it reminded me that getting the utility patents provided me with a different level of confidence. It was really difficult because I couldn't say anything about my product for almost 3 years. I have 2, and the first one took a little bit longer than the second, but I couldn't say anything for about 3 years. But I did have all that time to prepare and have the end game in mind. And it's interesting, and I apologize that I'm pretending all of this to my business, but this is all I know because I come from a different background. So I can only pertain it to Click and Carry. But it's interesting, when I was doing my due diligence with the Sharks, my prime way of creating a successful company was getting into retail, but then COVID happened. So I had to pivot, and I had to transfer the majority of my sales to online. And it's something that I didn't really prepare for, because I didn't think that it was going to be lucrative, that it was the proper channel for my product. But it turns out that it was, and I had a lot of downtime to prepare for that. So thank you for reminding me, Molly Beth, about the confidence level that I had having the utility patent. It really made a difference, a huge difference in my world.
Molly, one thing you mentioned I think is a great thing for us to discuss as a panel, and I think it's something we probably all have an opinion or a story to share on, is the role of failure in creating success. You know, Mary Kay, who we know created an empire in the beauty industry, said, when you reach an obstacle, turn it into an opportunity. You have the choice. You can overcome and be a winner, or you can allow it to overcome you and be a loser. The choice is yours and yours alone. Refuse to throw in the towel. Go that extra mile that failures refuse to travel. It's far better to be exhausted from success than to be rested from failure. What do you all see as the role of failure in being a successful entrepreneur, in helping entrepreneurs to be successful?
I'll just go first and say it's absolutely essential. You don't know what you can achieve until you've already failed not to achieve it. No, I mean, I think it is. As long as you approach it with that right mindset of growth, and, you know, how am I going to grow from this? What can I take away from this experience that's going to help me or my team in the future? So I think it's essential. My favorite is always the Thomas Edison quote, right? You know, he tried 99 times to invent a light bulb, and someone asked him, well, what was it like to fail? He goes, I didn't fail. I did things 99 times to make sure that I got the right one. And so I think that's an example of that growth mindset that is so common amongst entrepreneurs. But Kim, I mean, you should probably speak to that. And Jennifer, I want to hear from you on that too.
So you're absolutely right. And what I find is through failure, you become a little more thick-skinned, number one, and you realize that no is just no for now. So you certainly do learn from your failures. And it's interesting. I love your quotes, Elizabeth, because it's true. There are no failures because you're through the process perfecting your item or your product or your service, and it becomes more beneficial for the end user. And you know, it's funny because I don't know if I should be proud or embarrassed about this, but with Shark Tank, I applied 7 or 8 times before I finally made it. And it's one of those things where if I had just given up, then I would never have made it to TV and received all that publicity that I couldn't afford. So it was a blessing in disguise. But if I had just rolled over and I didn't take that last swing at the bat, it wouldn't have happened. So learn from your failures. I was able to take that information each year and improve my pitch and improve my sales, and I made myself more attractive to them, so they finally picked me, and luckily a couple of sharps picked me as well. So thank you.
And I'll add that I am a big fan of embracing failure. You have to reach far, and you'll fail, and embrace it and share it with others, and they'll share their failures with you, and you'll all learn. It's I think it's critical. I once had I was familiar with a company whose slogan was "Failure is not an option," and it was a startup. It was a research company, and everybody in the lab got very timid about things, and it became this kind of joke about it. If you didn't fail, it would be called search, not research. So it was just an interesting study. But I have to say that I embrace failure. It's part of entrepreneurship. It's a part of innovation. It's a part of inventorship. And enjoy it, and just you never. I guess the quote I have is that you don't fail until you quit trying. So just keep going.
Indeed, and thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, in talking about failure, you mentioned sharing your failure with others, and they'll share their failures with you, and you can both learn from the experience. That's a great lead-in for our next question, and that's what resources do you want to highlight that have been useful to you or your clients or individuals you've worked with in entrepreneurship for their success? And I know Wynn touched on resources in her fireside chat, and I think some of those that she referenced were incredibly valuable. But each of you, what would you see as resources that you would recommend others to seek out or to investigate as to possible help in their particular endeavor?
I can start with that. I of course want to point people to the USPTO website. It's fantastic, the resources that are available there. It's really tremendous. But in particular, there's the Innovation Expansion Hub on the website, which is a terrific source of resources. It provides, for example, demystifying the patent system toolkit, mentoring programs, communities of innovators together, as well as links to other, the Small Business Association, all of these other resources that are available. It's all, curated and right there on the patent USPTO website. So I really recommend tapping into the tremendous resources that are available there.
Absolutely, and I'll add on to Jennifer. I think part of expanding American innovation isn't just looking at it from a demographic perspective. It is that geographic and then also that economic perspective. So from a geographic perspective, reach out to your regional offices, to the USPTO. As part of the federal government, we work so closely with our sister agencies, whether it's the Export Assistance Council or, our SBDCs in the region. Every single regional office, and I know Liz has had a chance to ride the bus as well, does the SBIR, STTR program, where all of these other federal agencies will talk about grants and money that might be available. We participate in it from an intellectual property perspective. So that's that geographic expansion. Definitely reach out to your USPTO regional offices, and worst case scenario, we can make introductions to, some of the people that you need to know on the other federal government side. Your state economic developments, any of the World Trade Centers, please reach out to them. They have a wealth of resources and mentors that can help you. But I will also say, I love the USPTO's law school clinics and our pro bono program. Our pro bono program is in all 50 states, and we have law school clinics across the nation. I love the law school clinic for a lot of reasons, but number one, it gets law students experience in working directly with clients, which helps them get jobs. So I think that's a win-win. And plus, it allows the clients of the clinic to receive free help. And then our pro bono programs around the nation are unbelievably fantastic in getting under-resourced inventors the help that they need to get through the patent process. You know, it's not necessarily intuitive. Even Wynn said that. I always say, you know, on the failure side as well, I always tell people, right, the first thing you'll probably receive from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office is a rejection. It's not a rejection of you personally. It's just an invitation to a conversation about why your invention is unique. But the pro bono process, I really think, does amazing work across the nation to help under-resourced inventors. And then I would also add our patent and trademark resource centers. So those are librarians that are in all 50 states, I think, at this point. And they are there to help with searching and understanding that market, as we talked about earlier, you know, understanding where your competition is, and then also understanding what the landscape looks like from an intellectual property perspective.
And for me, I'm going to start with the USPTO also, because it's been an amazing resource for me, because it just doesn't stop with a patent for a business. It also requires a trademark and also questions into working with other countries. USPTO has been an amazing resource, and I could not have come this far without them, number one. Then another thing that was suggested was working with lawyers and even law students. And actually, I hired a law student to help me with my patent search to make sure that I could save money and work with the USPTO to make sure that my patent was approved. And another group that I utilized also from the federal government is the SBA and SCORE. It's amazing how much help I received from mentors through both of those groups. It's phenomenal. There's so many amazing resources out there from the United States government, and I honestly couldn't have come this far without them. And all the way back to financials, planning, manufacturing, just amazing resources that are available to us. And then even working with local colleges. For example, I worked with a local college. I worked with a product design student because her school had access to a 3D CAD printer. And if I had paid for a 3D CAD printer out in the real world, it would have been very, very expensive. Instead, I was able to make iterations for about $200 a piece. I went through 9 of them. So just like we were discussing before, 99 times until you come upon the winner. So I finally, after $1,800, I came upon the winner. But if I had done that in the real world, it would have been $2,000 an iteration versus $200 an iteration. So there are so many resources out there available to you. And it's interesting because Wynn touched on it before. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because I have been helped so often along the way. And I'm available to help any person who's interested in patenting a product or designing a product, because so many people helped me. It's an obligation for me to give back. Plus, I feel really good about helping others because I received so much amazing help along the way. And then lastly, there's a group that I'm in called WBENC, and I'm considered a minority-owned business as a woman. And it's amazing because so many big companies feel an obligation or have a need to work with minority-owned businesses, and it really opens the door for me. For example, Walmart, Target, Kroger, all of these companies want to work with minority-owned businesses and give them a head start. So it's a real foot in the door. So I advise everyone to go after those sort of accreditations in addition to the patents and the trademarks.
Ladies, this question alone is a kernel of gold for our attendees to take away. And I'm so thankful that each of you hit on such valuable resources. And some of those resources are really unsung heroes. Molly, our pro bono program, our law school clinical program, the PTRC program. We can't promote those programs enough, that those are resources that are available to people. And so many of these resources, and resources of the SBA and SCORE as well, oftentimes these resources are for free. Our favorite 4-letter word, right? So we want people to take advantage of these opportunities. And Kim, your voice of the insider tips and tricks, that prototyping with a local college, I think that's an excellent one, and thank you for sharing that. We do have some additional prepared questions, but I also see we have some questions from our audience, so I want to be sure and get to some of those if we can. And I think this next one is a really telling one. Our questioner asks, I can only imagine the stress associated with chasing your dream and inventing such a cool product. So this is obviously directed at Kim, but Jennifer and Molly, I think you can answer it as well. How do you handle the anxiety? So it's really a question about how do you handle the anxiety of making a pivot, of following a dream, of perhaps stepping away from what you've always known and done to do something different, whether it's going from a law firm to corporate practice, whether it's starting your own legal association, whether it's starting your own small business. How do you handle the anxiety? What are something we can do to help?
So I would say that the most important thing is to have belief in yourself, and failure is inevitable. It's going to happen, but try to plan, try to save money, or do whatever you need to do so that you can relieve some of that anxiety. But the bottom line is you can't give up. If this is your dream, you have to go after it. For example, it was really difficult for me to leave my job in October, but this is the chance of a lifetime, and I have to strike while the iron is hot. I have enough confidence in my product and in my strategy and all of the preparation that I've done that, of course, there's anxiety, but I have no choice. There's no turning back now. I'm just moving forward. And the worst that's going to happen is that the company fails. And guess what? I could get a job all over again. Yes, I'll have to start back from scratch, but that's the worst that could happen. So why not go for it? Just give it your all.
So I won't talk about any of my inappropriate coping mechanisms that involve, shall we say, grapes in a fermented, in a bottle. But I will say I have leaned on my network. I have leaned on my mentors. I cannot thank any of them enough for all of those people who have talked me off the ledge and who, believed in me when I, quite frankly, maybe didn't believe in myself. So I think your mentors, your support network, the people who will be there for you, they definitely help with anxiety. And, I always refer to one of my favorite inventors, Beulah Louise Henry, who invented the vacuum sealed ice cream freezer, because, she allows us to have the relationship with Ben and Jerry's that some of us have. So I really think, right, like, maybe don't adopt my inappropriate coping mechanisms, but definitely rely on your support network and your mentors and your personal board of directors or your team that cheers you on.
Boy, this is truly Women's History Month if we can weave Lady Edison into a conversation. Nicely done, Molly. Jennifer, do you want to add to the conversation?
Sure, I do a little bit of both from Kim and from Molly Beth too. It is one of those things where there's a lot of anxiety, but I look at others who've done it, and I say others have done it, and if it doesn't work, I'll do something else. But I also have to surround myself with people who have faith in me, and oftentimes, almost always, they have far more faith in me than I have in myself. And that helps. My husband has been a terrific support through all of this. I also hit the treadmill maybe a little too often. I meditate maybe a little too long when things get tough. But anxiety is part of the fun of it. If your life is completely anxiety free, it actually might be a little boring. So embrace it.
I love that. I love that. And I think we can all take a takeaway from each and every one of you that there's no one way to deal with the stress and anxiety. And maybe it might take more than one way. We have kind of a very specific patent question that I'm going to pose, recognizing that we can't provide legal advice. But I'm going to call on Jennifer and Molly, although Kim, please feel free to jump in as well. We have an attendee today who has filed a provisional patent application and is in the process of manufacturing their product, but they're also filing for the non-provisional. Will the provisional patent application protect me sufficiently? Maybe to just touch on what a provisional patent application is very quickly and how that may or may not help in your process of entrepreneurship, manufacturing, and commercializing.
Jennifer, do you want to start or?
Sure, absolutely. A provisional application, sometimes people refer to it as a placeholder. So it is an application that describes your invention that you put on file, and then you have 1 year's time to work on your invention, to create more data, to develop it, to learn more about it, to expound upon it. And then you have to either file a utility patent, which is a patent that then gets examined, or patent application, I'm sorry, that then actually gets examined. And if you make it through the examination process, that's what will be allowed and be issued. And then you have your actual patent. And then it's that patent that is actionable. That's the patent that will protect you. There is some protection potentially provided from the date you file your utility application. So it doesn't go all the way back to your provisional application, but if you file your utility application, your conversion after the 1 year period of the placeholder, and what you claim in there, what you describe as your invention and claim at the very end is essentially the same as the claims that are ultimately issued, you might have some protection from there, but it does not go back to your provisional patent filing. What it protects you from is others who come along in the intervening year and file an application that claims something that's very similar to your invention. So that's what it does protect you on. You have a placeholder, you have a date and time in which you invented first.
Woohoo!
Molly, did you want to add anything?
Absolutely not. Jennifer did a great job.
Very good. Thank you. So I see our time is drawing to a close, but I have one question, and then I want to give each of you the opportunity to provide a pearl of wisdom to share with our audience as their takeaway. But maybe if we could hit one last question relatively quickly to address the elephant in the room, and that is the pandemic and its significant impact on all of us. How is the current climate of the digital environment, the pandemic, affected how you work with your clients? And are there some takeaways for how that could help or hurt your business or the business of those you work with in the future? Are there some positives, or is it solely negatives that we have to take away from this dramatic experience that we've gone through together?
I'll start a little bit. You know, the focus for the agency really shifted last March. And I'm so proud of this agency for how seamlessly we transitioned. I think all of the investments that we made over the years in telework, all of the other things that we have done to promote inclusion and you know, engagement with the agency have paid off in spades. But I mean, I love the fact that on average, there's over 13,000 VPN connections to headquarters every single day. There's an average of 6,000 participants that hold 1,200 virtual meetings using our agency's secure teleconferencing tools. We have over 9,000 patent examiners and trademark examining attorneys working virtually, and we didn't miss a beat in our examinations. It's nothing short of phenomenal. For me personally, everything changed to online. I've had to make some personal changes, you know, just in terms of not traveling anymore. My suitcase really is very upset at me. And I miss a lot of the in-person connections that we've been able to make, but we've been able to seamlessly transition to the virtual environment. And I think we've been able to get some very rich conversations occurring in the virtual environment as we've adapted. So while I'm looking forward to going back and being able to visit people, for example, I really miss Kansas City barbecue. I have to tell you, I haven't been to Kansas City in like a year and a half, and I really miss their barbecue, and I miss the people everywhere in my region. So I am looking forward to getting back, but we have adapted really well to this. But Jennifer, I'd be interested in hearing your insights as well.
I couldn't agree more. I've been incredibly impressed with the way that the patent office managed, adapted to, continued on during the pandemic. And from my own perspective, my timing as far as launching Title was it coincided with the pandemic and the shutdown, and it was actually fairly good timing. As far as the development of the digital, the video, conferencing, all of those resources for working from home. And I think it's really actually quite good, and hopefully will be good to businesses and others in the legal facility, legal services field, because law firms have a lot of lawyers downtown in big fancy offices that have really high rent, and you know who pays for that? The clients do. And now we've learned that attorneys can work from home and interact with their clients on video chat and have face-to-face time and really do productive and good legal work without the high rent. So hopefully this will actually be a benefit to companies and clients everywhere. But my heart, of course, goes out to everyone who wasn't as fortunate in the pandemic, and that's really the most important point I want to make. But as far as the development of this being the infrastructure for video conferencing and for digital interactions has really been, I think, quite good, and will be beneficial to the legal services field.
Great points, Jennifer. And I have to say that, again, not everyone has been so lucky, but the pandemic has actually been a positive for me. For example, trade shows are very important when you're trying to promote a product, and I could do them virtually now. So that has been phenomenal. It saves me a lot of money as a small business. And there are services, for example, there's eCRM and ArrangeMe.com that I'm able to promote my product to specific buyers all through the computer. So it makes life easy. Plus I could do it from home in my pajamas. And it's easy to do research on places like LinkedIn, where I could find buyers there as well. So it's made me become more creative, and it's actually saved me a lot of time because I don't have to pack and go to a trade show and spend all that money. And I also don't have to sit in a long commute. I live in Los Angeles, so that's my favorite thing about the pandemic, is not being in rush hour traffic all the time.
Ladies, thank you. We've certainly all learned and grown, and there are some positive takeaways as each of you have shared. Kim touched on it earlier, and that's the value and importance of paying it forward. And very honestly, that is what each one of you is doing today by participating in this panel. And I can't thank you enough for your time and expertise shared today. With that, I'd like to give each of you the moment for one last word, one last kernel of expertise and advice that you might like to leave our audience with. What is that takeaway that you would offer to our audience today?
I'll go first. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to come to people that you might not think would help you. But ask for help. The people who are most successful, especially in pivots, ask for help. And I think that's the most important takeaway.
I would say don't allow your dreams to be dashed. You know, when you're talking about this new idea you have, or this new invention, or this new service, there are going to be a lot of naysayers out there. Don't listen to them. Believe in yourself, have confidence, and just go for it. I said it before, no is just no for now. It really is no for now. And I agree with you. It's necessary to ask for help, and people are so willing to help. You'll be amazed. If you don't ask, you don't receive. So be sure to ask for help along the way.
And I'll just say, take a leap of faith. Go for it. You've got this.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Jennifer, Kim, Molly. Leave you with a word of wisdom. Dave Thomas, our famous founder of Wendy's, once said, "What do you need to start a business? 3 simple things. Know your product better than anyone, know your customer, and have a burning desire to succeed." As our 3 panelists have shown today, they each have a burning desire to succeed and have each in their own individual right, and they've shared that formula for success with you today. My thanks to them, my thanks to Sean and all of those in the Office of Innovation Outreach and the communications team of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. It was a pleasure to be part of this year's Women's Entrepreneurship Symposium. We wish you all the best of success in your continued innovation journey.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Kimberly, Jennifer, and Molly. Your panel was exciting, innovative, and informative, and we appreciate you providing all those resources for everyone watching today.